Howdy, howdy, howdy. Good evening and welcome back to another installment of Mr. Eric Reads. Tonight's book is about a principal, and I know what you're thinking already. Man, I love my principal. You can't read a story about a principal that does not involve my own personal one. However, I assure you that you will enjoy this story because we're not just talking about the principal. We're talking about the principal's new clothes by Stephanie Calmenson. Now, you guys are going to find out a little bit about this here principal that I think you might enjoy. So, without further ado, let's find out what happens in the principal's new clothes on Mr. Eric Reads. Wink. Mr. Bundy is the principal of PS 88. He is also the sharpest dresser in town. His students never miss a day of school because they like to see what he is wearing. "Looking good, Mr. B," they always say. Mr. Bundy has so many clothes, he can go through a whole month and not wear the same suit twice. Sometimes he changes at lunchtime just to show off. One day, a man and a woman who said they were tailors called on Mr. Bundy. Their card said, "Mo and Ivy will make suits that suit you fine." But they were not really tailors. In fact, they were tricksters. "Greetings, Mr. B," said Ivy. "How would you like to buy an amazing, one-of-a-kind suit?" "Well, madam, I have many suits already," said Mr. Bundy. "Yeah, man, but this is no ordinary suit," said Mo. "It has special powers." "My dear man, what do you mean?" asked Mr. Bundy. So Mo looked to his left, and Mo looked to his right, and then he whispered in Mr. Bundy's ear. "We make our clothes from a special cloth, you see. It's invisible to anyone who is no good at his job or just plain stupid." "Really?" said Mr. Bundy. "Why, yes," said Ivy. "Not only will you look great, but you can find out if anyone in your school is just not good at their job or plain silly." "Ha! Well, that is amazing!" cried Mr. Bundy. "Okay, now, if you'll take off your jacket and lift up your arms, sir," said Ivy, grinning, "and I will go ahead and take your measurements." "Yeah, and we'll also be taking your money," mumbled Mo. The next day, Mo and Ivy set up a workshop in the gym. It was not long before the whole school heard about the amazing cloth and wanted to see it. Students asked to be excused to get a drink of water. Then they ran to the gym to peek. Teacher said they were going to next door to borrow chalk, but then they ran to the gym too, but no one could see a thing. By the end of the week, Mr. Bundy began to wonder what his new clothes looked like. But he was also a little worried. What if he could not see the cloth? So he sent his vice principal, Miss Moore, to have a look. Miss Moore was smart and she was good at her job. She would have no trouble seeing the cloth. Miss Moore hurried to the gym door and she knocked on the door. "Mr. Bundy sent me to see his new clothes," she called over the noise of the whirring machines. A moment later, the door opened crack and Miss Moore slipped inside. "What do you think, love? Have you seen anything like it?" Poor Miss Moore. She couldn't see a thing. Oh my gosh, could it be that I am just not good at my job?" she wondered. "I've tried so hard to be a good vice principal." So she took off her glasses and wiped them off and then looked again, but it was no use. Miss Moore had to think fast. If she told the truth that she couldn't see the clothes, she might get fired. It's beautiful," she said, I'm going to tell Mr. Bundy right now how much I like his new clothes. Your suit is great, Miss Moore told Mr. Bundy. I've never seen anything like it. Now I've got to run and make a phone call. Bye. She hurried off before Mr. Bundy could ask any questions. Now Mr. Bundy was more curious than ever. He stopped Roger in the hall. Roger was one of the smartest students in the entire school. If he couldn't see the suit, no one could. Say, Roger, said Mr. Bundy, do me a favor and go find out how my new suit is coming along. Roger couldn't believe his ears. Wow, yeah, he said. I'll be the first one to see the principal's new clothes. Wait till my class hears about this. Oh, and then he raced off to the gym. The door was still open, so Roger peeked inside. He could see Mo and Ivy at their sewing machines, hard at work, but he could not see the cloth. Oh no, Roger thought. If Miss Feeney finds out I can't see the cloth, she'll say that I'm not smart, and she'll fail me for sure. On his way back to class, Roger poked his head into Mr. Bundy's office. Super suit, he said. But wait, Roger, what does it look like? I can't stop now, Mr. B. Miss Feeney is giving a test and I wouldn't want to miss it. Mr. Bundy couldn't stand it any longer. I'll just have to go down and see it for myself. So he marched down the hall and walked into the gym. Mr. Bundy looked at the empty machines and he blinked once and he blinked twice and he began to tremble. How can this be? Am I really no good at my job? Is there anything wrong? Said Ivy. Oh no, said Mr. Bundy. The suit it's fantastic. I can hardly wait to try it on. So Mr. Bundy handed Mo and Ivy 2 gold stars to show how much he liked the new suit. I'd like to wear the suit to the assembly tomorrow, he said, but I guess it just won't be ready. And he turned to go. I don't know, Mr. Bundy. Yes, it will. We'll have it done before tomorrow, said Mo, and we'll work on it all night and we'll bring it to your house in the morning. So that night, Mr. Bundy dreamed cold and drafty dreams. Early the next morning, Mo and Ivy appeared, holding up their empty hangers in the air. Ivy waited in the other room while Mo helped Mr. Bundy put on his new clothes. You must be careful stepping into these pants, all right now, he said. The cloth is very, very delicate. Ivy tried not to look at Mr. Bundy. Aren't your new clothes really light? She asked from the other room. It's almost like having nothing at all on, huh? Mr. Bundy stared at himself in the mirror. He prayed that the rest of the world was smarter and fitter than he. Are you coming to the assembly? Asked Mr. Bundy. Thanks, but no thanks. We now have a bus to catch. But if you could pay us, we'll just go ahead and run along. Mo handed Mr. Bundy the bill. Mr. Bundy handed Mo a great deal of money. Something doesn't smell right here. On the way to school, Mr. Bundy's neighbors all raved about the clothes they did not see. After all, they did not want their friends to find out that they were not smart or they were no good at their jobs. Mr. Bundy walked into the auditorium, and as he walked down the aisle, he could hear the whispers all around him. Mr. Bundy thought that he must be the only unintelligent person in the town. Suddenly, a kindergarten child called out, "The principal's in his underwear!" And that did it. Everybody in the assembly burst into laughter. The truth had been told. Mr. Bundy and the teachers and the students knew that they had been tricked. No one had been willing to tell the truth because they were so worried about what other people might think. That sounds like a lesson. Mr. Bundy stood on the stage, red in the face, knees shaking for the chill, but not for long. The kids and teachers wanted to help Mr. Bundy, so they began passing up shirts and sweatpants, jackets and ties and caps. Soon Mr. Bundy had a new suit. "Looking good, Mr. B," called Roger from the back row. Mr. Bundy called the kindergarten child onto the stage. He shook her hand and gave her a gold star. "Thank you, Alice, for telling the truth," he said. Everyone cheered. They knew Mr. Bundy was smart and very good at his job. And they all agreed that Mr. Bundy was still the sharpest dresser in town. The end. The Principal's New Clothes by Stephanie Calmenson, here on Sunday's Mr. Eric Reads. What was the lesson of that story again? You can tell the truth, even if you're embarrassed about what other people might think. As long as you do it in a respectful way, that's all you can ask for. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that story. Gear up for another week of Learn From Home. It's going to be fine. It's going to be great. All right. Hope to see you guys sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves, wash your hands, and be kind to everybody you meet, see, or talk to. And until then, I'll see you guys around.